Hey, what's up guys? I'm Dario from Bluebird, and today I want to talk to you about the new Timemore Sculptor 078. Probably the most anticipated grinder release in the home user market in a very, very long time, and we're very fortunate to get our hands on one before they become available in South Africa, although they are shipping in Europe and America already. This grinder will be available in 4 different options. The 064, which is a 64mm burr specifically designed for filter coffee, the 64S, which is then for filter and espresso, but with a completely different burr set, the 078, which is the version we have here, and it's specific for filter coffee, and the 078S, which is for then espresso and filter coffee. The temptation, if you're brewing a lot of filter coffee at home, might be to go for the S because you have flexibility to do both filter and espresso, but from the reviews I've watched and the experience I've had with this particular grinder, the burr set in this grinder is so good that if you are committed to just filter coffee, I would go for the 078, not the S. Obviously, if you're brewing espresso, different story, but the filter results you're going to get from the S will be very different to the filter results on the 078. I unfortunately haven't had access to the whole range. I've only had access to the 078, but my experience has been exceptional. There are many videos on the internet where this grinder will be taken apart. You can have a look at the burr set, how it all gets put back together, and the mechanics of what makes it work. And I would highly recommend Lance Hedrick's video, which I'll link below if you're interested in that side of this grinder. For me, I'm more interested in the user experience, and I want to be able to recommend it to those of you who I think it will suit best. This grinder will not be a cheap grinder. In South Africa, it will be around the 20,000 Rand mark, depending on what the exchange rate is doing at the time of import. And as we know, unfortunately, at the moment, that's like riding a bit of a wild roller coaster. It's not going to be on the cheap end of the grinder market, and nor should it be with the cup quality. So a few things to know about this grinder. The first one is that it has a very, very compact footprint, which I love for the home grinder space. When I was new to coffee, I thought big equipment was exciting. It's the same as photography. I really wanted to have a massive camera when I first started shooting photos, and very quickly realized how cumbersome and impractical it was to carry around with me. And brewing equipment is the same. When I had a tiny espresso machine, all I wanted was a big espresso machine, and now I would love to go back to a much smaller footprint. So what I love about the Timemore Sculptor is how compact it is and how neat it looks on the bar. It would look at home in most people's kitchens, and I really love it for that. It's got a few cool features like a magnetic catch for the bin. There is variable RPM for the motor, which is not something that I tend to play with a lot. I've set it at 1200 and left it there. I'm not sure if we're all repeating the same thing, but everyone I'm listening to speaking about RPM at the moment seems to agree that there isn't much hard data saying that it affects the grind quality. It definitely does affect the grind size at any particular grind setting, but once set and grind setting dialed in, there isn't really much data to show that the quality of the grind is better at a different RPM. I've set it at 1200 and left it there. I think I saw Lance doing that, and it's been amazing to work with. The adjustment dial is stepped, but you have so much range, you will never run out of space to dial in your filter coffee. The bean hopper is small. Practically, it will hold around 20 grams of coffee. If you need to dose more than that, it is a bit of a trick to work with. I did try and feed in a larger dose of coffee with the lid off, and a bit of popcorning did happen with beans jumping out the hopper. But for most filter brewing, you won't really need more than 20 grams at a time. And if you do, feed the first 20 through, pop the next 20 in, and you'll be good to go. And the lid does go back on with a very satisfying magnetic clip, keeping everything in place, which is absolutely awesome. The on button does feel like a bit flimsy, but I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. It's a well-built piece of kit. It feels solid, it feels robust, feels well-built. But what I love about this grinder is not necessarily the way it looks or the way it's built, but I love the workflow, and more specifically, I'm loving the cup quality. I had very high expectations when receiving the grinder based on what I had heard about it, and I can actually say that it has surpassed those expectations. I've been leaning towards the Sculptor for my everyday brews, and it does really, really make me think that this could be a fantastic option for a small cafe perhaps you're focused on espresso right now and you want to venture into filter coffee, but you know, buying an EK43 would be quite prohibitive. This is less than half the price, and I think, in my experience, the cup quality is as good or better than the EK43, which is quite a big statement. Cup quality is amazing, workflow is incredible. One of the very clever pieces of kit on this grinder is this little fines knocker. As I turn this collar, it creates a bit of a knock and it loosens any fines accumulated in the chute. Now, you've got two choices there. You can either grind and then knock the fines out. You're going to end up with your very fine particles of coffee and chaff that's being caught when grinding coffee, grinding your dose through. You can either knock that out into your dose and use that when you're brewing, or you can choose to leave it in there and knock it out separately and have a better particle size distribution essentially in your bed of coffee, which is what I've been doing, and the cup quality has been fantastic. As I said, I would say that clarity and definitely like juiciness, if that's a good way to describe our coffee, has been the biggest takeaway from this grinder. I'm just finding that I'm able to push extractions a bit higher before reaching astringency, and really enjoying the results. So I think the number one question I would expect to ask about this grinder, or be asked about this grinder, is what would my other options be in this sort of quality range? And it's a bit difficult to actually say. Internationally, there are so many single dose grinders becoming made available. And if you have access to all of those, yes, you will have options to look at. In South Africa, we have so few options, and we're very fortunate that this grinder will be imported and will be available locally with local support. It is a 78mm grinder, 78mm burr, which is quite unique. There aren't many burr options, if any, at that size, so you are going to be limited for the time being at least to the burrs made available by Timemore. And it's a much larger burr than the most common single dose home focused grinders on the market. So this really is in a league of its own right now, and it's priced accordingly. The 64mm burr will be cheaper, there will be a good option, but from the reviews I've seen, the cup quality is vastly improved on the 78 compared to the 64. I personally have a DF64 at home at the moment, and it's been great, but after using this specifically, as I said, this is the filter focused grinder. Without question, I'll be looking to sell my DF64 and move on to one of these when the time comes. So in conclusion, I'm pretty in love with this grinder. I can't wait to get my hands on the S version to test it for espresso as well. And if you are committed to filter and you're looking to get the most out of your daily brews, I can highly recommend this grinder. For me personally, the biggest takeaway is efficient workflow and high cup quality, and I can't really ask for much more. So the only thing left for us to do now is to brew a cup of coffee, which I'm going to do right now. But before I do that, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and of course subscribe to our channel. The next sequence of videos coming from our channel will be about our journey through the world of coffee in Athens. We leave in 2 days' time, and we're very excited to be serving coffee with the La Mazzocco crew and the Minor Figures crew, and meeting up with all our friends at WBC and WBRC, and just have an amazing time celebrating all the growth that's happening in the specialty industry around the world. So we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Let's brew some coffee.